Variables are named containers used to store data. Think of them as labels on boxes, each holding something specific. To create a variable, you can use var keyword. Initially you could only use var to create variables in JavaScript, but later let and const were introduced, so we can do let name equals to John. And we can also use the const keyword like this. The difference between var and let is that var has a function scope and let has a block scope. We'll see what is scope later in more detail. Const is similar to let in scope, but its value cannot be changed. If you try to change value of const, you'll see an error. Whereas we can change values of variables declared with var and let. Please note in JavaScript, we end a statement with semicolon. While they are not always required, but missing them may cause some rare bugs which we will look in detail later on. These are the data types that we have in JavaScript. We'll look some of them in more detail later, but for now let's create variables with different types. First we have a string type. We use quotation marks to create string. We can also use single quotation. Then we have the Boolean type, which can be either true or false. We can also initialize a variable with null like this. And also use undefined. Undefined means a variable that has been declared but has not been assigned a value. Null, on the other hand, is an assignment value. It implies the absence of value. If I create a variable like this and don't assign it a value, it is called declaring a variable. And later we can assign a value to it. To output on console, we can do console.log. It prints 20 on console. But if we don't assign it a value, it will print undefined because we haven't assigned it any value. On the other hand, null needs to be assigned, and null means this variable has a value and it is empty. Keep in mind we need to initialize const when declaring it, because we cannot change its value later, so it need to be initialized while declaration. If we don't initialize, we'll get an error. In JavaScript, we can also change the type of variable. So I can set another string in name. But I can also set number in name as well. If I add a log statement here as well, you can see it was John then became 20. We can use the typeof operator to find the data type. So if I add typeof before variable names in both the console.log statements, we can see first it's string then number. Let's create two variables, first a floating point. Then an integer. And if we check their type, both of them will be number. Instead of creating variables in separate lines, we can also create them on a single line. Start the statement with let or var, then name of first variable. Then separate the new variable with commas. You can also declare multiple constants in a single line using const. In the next video, we'll learn naming conventions and valid and invalid names. Please support my channel by subscribing it.